Welcome back to our reflections on the Gospel. We're very happy to share this time with you, and we're preparing today to reflect on the Gospel of the 28th Sunday in ordinary time. Now it happened that on the way to Jerusalem, he was travelling in the borderlands of Samaria and Galilee. As he entered one of the villages, 10 men suffering from leprosy came to meet him. They stood some way off and called to him, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." Now as they were going away, they were cleansed. Finding himself cured, one of them turned back, praising God at the top of his voice, and threw himself prostrate at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. The man was a Samaritan. This led Jesus to say, "Were not 10 made clean? The other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to come back to give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to the man, "Stand up and go on your way. Your faith has saved you." Notice in the opening there that Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem, right? So in a lot of things that are happening, Jesus is on the way, and there's a definite theological position. It's not just geographical, and Jesus is talking very often about discipleship. And I think what we're having here is about discipleship as well. The story is about the 10 lepers, but there are different aspects of the story. I think the first thing that I wanted to say was that their cure is from obedience, right? Jesus said, "Go and tell the priest," but it's while they were on their way. It wasn't that the priest did anything. That the obedience was the thing that was important. Yes. So I think that's a message as part of the gospel, the importance of obedience. And then the whole issue really is about gratitude. And gratitude is a very significant thing within the Jewish spirituality. I mentioned it before, I think, that the Jews didn't just worship any god, they worshipped the God who had first intervened. So their word for praise and their word for thank you come from the same root. I checked it up as I was preparing this talk. So praise and thanksgiving go together, and you'll notice that the man that came back praised God and thanked Jesus. So it's a sort of a drawing of Jesus into that mystery of God, which is part of their spirituality. So a key thing, I think, there. And I think what is important is that the message is be grateful. But then, only after the message has been given, does it point out that this one who gave it was a Samaritan. So this is again a Lucan theme. It's like the Good Samaritan. That is the one. The wrong person is actually giving the right message. So I think that's actually happening here. One of the commentators spoke about sort of a recognition that in Greek tragedy and things like that, there's a time at the end when somebody is recognised, that they've finally recognised this is the one. And that's the way the Samaritan occurs. There's just sort of a surprise that Samaritan is the one that is necessary. There are certain themes that are about to unfold in the scriptures, in the Gospel of Luke. One of them is the royal theme, because we're getting near the Passion, and it's beginning to theme. The throwing himself at the feet of Jesus is a sort of a royal gesture. But another thing that is reminiscent of the Old Testament is the story of gratitude in the Old Testament. I just can't think of the exact scene now, but certainly the spirituality of the Old Testament was was one of gratitude and thanks. So the emphasis is really it's gratitude. It's the universalism of Luke, the Samaritan, is included, and the acknowledgement that really thanking God is the thing that's important. The thanksgiving is important. There's a quote from St. Ambrose that often comes up, that nothing is more urgent than thank you. And the words of Meister Eckhart, if the only prayer ever said was thank you, that would be enough. Yeah. So I think that's what the message is, that the response to salvation is a thank you.
It's a glorious small tale in the midst of the whole Luke's gospel, which, as you say, picks up these themes that Luke is so... he's a superb storyteller. He can, in miniature, it's the story we've heard in other ways.
That's right.
And just that one word that popped up, he's a foreigner. You know, just when you thought the whole story was done, he's a foreigner. So I think it's a beautiful encapsulating. But of course, when I hear this story, I also think of early days, because there was a wonderful hymn about 10 unclean and nowhere to go. 10 men cleansed, clean as snow. So be careful what hymns you're teaching young ones, because they remember it forever.
That's right.
But once again, I think what I was struck by, I know I'm, how do I say this? The older I get, the better I am at whinging. I can whinge about things that are of no significance whatsoever, and the less I think I focus on that gratitude, and particularly God's gratitude for the myriad of blessings that are in my life. So I think this is a wake-up call for me, to focus on the thank you rather than to, how do you say, to be focusing on what's not right.
Yes. Actually, the Old Testament scene I couldn't remember was the story of Naaman, the Syrian, that was cured by Elisha. And he was a foreigner. He was like the Samaritan, and he ended up coming back and saying thank you. So it's sort of there's a background.
There's something just hearing it today, how you can get so perhaps anaesthetised to the story because you hear it so many times and you think it's gratitude. And yet I heard today, as we were reading it, that he was gratitude to God, but then thanked Jesus. And I've always missed that little bit.
Yes.
But then the story came to me back with Peter's mother-in-law, who, when she was cured, she didn't give thanks. She got up and served.
That's right.
So there's something else in the gratitude and the thankfulness that takes you to the reality of what that's about. It's the change in oneself to move on and to do something.
I think that's the beauty of the scriptures, that every time you read them you can find little pieces, and also reading the scriptures together. It's amazing what other people recognise that you miss out. However, we invite you now to look at the text. Remember, we're talking about the text not in terms of study, but in terms of an encounter with Jesus. As you read this text, what do you feel that Jesus might be saying to you in this text? Welcome back. We invite you now to listen to the text again.
Now it happened that on the way to Jerusalem he was travelling in the borderlands of Samaria and Galilee. As he entered one of the villages, 10 men suffering from leprosy came to meet him. They stood some way off and called to him, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." Now as they were going away, they were cleansed. Finding himself cured, one of them turned back, praising God at the top of his voice, and threw himself prostrate at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. The man was a Samaritan. This led Jesus to say, "Were not 10 made clean? The other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to come back to give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to the man, "Stand up, go on your way. Your faith has saved you."
I was thinking about Luke's habit almost, or the way he does it, of having the wrong person give the message, right? The Good Samaritan was the one that did the right thing. The Samaritan here makes a confession. And I thought that I'd just like to look around and see who are the Samaritans in my life at the moment who are giving messages from God. That we tend to look to certain groups who do feed you and nourish you, but who are the strangers, as it were, that God is using to actually give you a message.
And funnily enough, once again on the second reading, John, something that you said clicked for me around the physical cures the heart.
Yeah.
So it was the leper who was cured, was full of the joy, but it was his heart that had changed.
Yeah.
And what struck me was that other line from Luke, and I'm sure David it was not I who have cured you, but your faith has cured you. So this centrality of faith. So I think that's the message for me, is trust in that faith, share that faith, grow that faith.
And I think that's what the other 9 didn't have. I think the other 9 were amazed that they were healed. But I think the Samaritan takes that extra step.
And it just challenged me, am I a Samaritan?
Oh, yes.
Because so many good things happen, but how often do I stop to be filled with gratitude so that change comes about in me? So I kind of want to sit with that.
Yeah. We invite you now to look at the text again and to try and draw out something practical that you can implement in your life. Remember, the process begins in the scriptures, it ends in your life. So choose something now practical that the Lord might be speaking to you about, that might help you in your life. We pause for a moment in prayer, acknowledging that we need the grace of God to actually implement what we have chosen. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate the time that you give to share this time with us, and we hope that it is as enriching for you as it is for us. We don't have access to what's taking place in your hearts, but we know that if you are dialoguing with the Lord in the scriptures, then you are being enriched by that dialogue. We conclude now by reading the prayer from the liturgy of the 28th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
May your grace, O Lord, we pray, at all times go before us and follow after, and make us always determined to carry out good works through Christ our Lord.